Welcome back to another day of action here in the PUBG Mobile Europe Community Tournament. The action is heating up as we get closer to the very end, and we'll find out who's the best community within Europe, at least from this competitive standpoint. My name is Imperium, and I'm once again joined by the wonderful, the talented, the ever humble, the amazingly wonderful, beautiful person that is Zute. I'm sorry I'm running out of words, but I think I've said it all, man. I think I've said it all.
As talented and magnificent and as many positive things you say about me, I think even more so could be said about the France community. I mean, just take a look at the overall ranking. They were already at a 100+ point lead yesterday, and we were like, that's insane. You know, like no team is catching up. They're gonna just, you know, keep it going. And what's even crazier is they've made that gap even wider somehow, some way. Just look at the elim and the rank points difference between them and the second place team. Absolutely insane.
It's pretty damn ridiculous, being perfectly honest. It's near illegal at this stage. But it's been all them. It's been all the two teams, Game Nord and Chasmak, coming together. Chasmak has stepped up to the plate massively. Follow behind them is Romania. Now, they were third at the start of yesterday, and I gotta give credit, especially the 4 Romanian men. Big plus, and they've climbed well over Germany. Germany had a horrendous day yesterday.
Oh, Germany probably had one of their worst days, like, all tournament long. We saw multiple finishes on the second half. I don't think they broke top 8, either community or either team, because Germany had 2 representatives playing yesterday.
Yes.
And I don't think I saw either one of them in the top 8 in all 4 games. They were always on the second half with maybe 2 to 3 points at most. So Germany definitely does fall behind, but that does give us, you know, that continual story of, you know, that second place battle. Teams are constantly vying for that. Italy yesterday only had 1 team representing them, and they actually did quite well. So they keep themselves afloat. Coming into today, they'll have 2 Italian teams representing them. So Italy should have a much better day-to-day in terms of gathering those points and hopefully looking to overtake Germany. Germany, of course, they don't want to have another fluff day like yesterday. Maybe they'll come back stronger today.
I know we'll have a graphic highlighting the teams that are playing in today's games, but seeing as you mentioned it with regards to Italy having both of their representatives today, it's Group B that isn't playing. So what 4 teams or what communities are without a team in today's games?
So for today's games, we got Game Lord representing France, the 100 representing the UK, Golden Esports representing Portugal, and LMV representing Germany. So that is France, UK, Portugal, and Germany down 1 team for today.
Sorry, my apologies. What was the French team that okay, it's Game Lord that's not playing. That's fine. That's okay, because Chasmak, they had an absolutely wonderful day yesterday. They're proving their worth here in this community tournament, and yeah, gotta give them props for it. You can see the participating countries and groups that are playing in today's games. Real Tiger 9, they have a pretty solid mountain to climb. I want to be a bit harsh and say they've gone a bit backwards over the start of this week 3 for whatever reason, for a couple of various reasons. And now as a solo representatives, as a community, the UK has done a wonderful job of climbing back up into 6th, even kind of vying to an extent, although still a good 100 and something points behind 5th. But there is that opportunity, and Real Tiger 9 needs to help put the whole of the UK community within line of possibly overtaking the Nordic countries in 5th.
So between 5th and 6th, it's a 100+ point gap.
Yeah.
I don't think the UK is going to close that, but the UK side did climb up to 6th place overall. We saw the UK, you know, hovering around 8th or 9th sometimes throughout the stages of the tournament, but they firmly put themselves like up in 6th overall. And of course, the teams behind them, the Czech Republic, Spain, only a few couple of points behind. So for the UK, in my opinion, they're going to be trying to fight for that 6th place position and to be able to keep it coming into the first match and the rest of the day today.
I do think the overall rankings as we get ready to go into game 1 of the day does reflect what is, when you look into this regions that and communities that have kind of 2 pretty strong teams coming into the tournament, and maybe one strong team and one maybe weaker team. It's no disrespect at all, but you know, the Italy side, Red Moon and La Familia, they're not 2 absolutely amazing teams, but they're 2 pretty high level teams. Germany, 2 pretty damn high level teams. Romania steps up Game Lord as well, but kind of Nordic downwards, you start to see that maybe one real great team, one kind of somewhat poor team. And I think it follows suit. But into the first game we are, Zute, the playing path, it's over in the west.
Yeah, the playing path, definitely on the west side. A lot of the east side, not within reach, but the roads do stretch left to right there. You can see on the map with Pachinki, or not Pachinki, with the way Erengel's laid out. So the road access ways, the car spawns, should not be a problem for many of these teams. We might, however, see Real Tiger 9 and Mega Power fight in Pachinki because Novo's quite far from Mega Power. And with a playing path like this, we might see a clash drop there. We saw yesterday Real Tiger 9 actually making some adjustments, trying to avoid Mega Power's potential drop in Pachinki, which never happened. So Real Tiger 9 is, you know, having a wherewithal to avoid the hot drop fight. So we might see something different come out today. But with the playing path, you know, being far on the western side, I think it's not too bad for many of these teams. They've played this Erengel map so many times. They're probably familiar with how to adjust by now.
Maybe that's a part of why Real Tiger 9 have dipped. Maybe they've lost that aggression. Maybe they should be challenging Mega Power for those drop spots. Because sometimes when a team, although I somewhat promote things like, you know, avoiding drop spots, but sometimes that can lead a team down a path of too much of a passive play style, that kind of foundation of, yeah, we're going to take it easy, we're going to avoid this time. But then 3-4 circles down the line, when there's still 16, 15 teams left, they're not really prepared for a fight because they've led into the early part of the game too relaxed, too chilled, too presumptuous on how they're going to end up.
Well, Mega Power did actually drop onto military base, and you can see it there. They've secured vehicles on the south side of military base and the north side, so nice seeing them do a little bit of a split to maximize their chances of securing a vehicle, and they're driving towards Nova. So it looks like all the teams are pretty much going towards where they usually go to. No drop clashes whatsoever. We see Chasmak with a little bit of an interesting split off the map start, but I think Pocus just south of Pachinki, dropping there looking for a vehicle, but maybe not finding one. But even given such, you know, a skewed playing path, you can tell that this lobby has played against each other day in and day out quite a lot of times. If we had this playing path at the start of the tournament, there would be a lot more clashes. But even with this playing path, everybody has found, in a way, their own separate paths to their irrespective loot spots, and everyone's respecting each other's boundaries.
Little bit of bittersweet news coming out from the Chasmak camp. Zute, I don't know if you in any way heard. I do follow a good few of the European players, of course, being from that region. After the PMECT, Chasmak are actually disbanding, which is clearly a massive shame, not only because you hate to see teams disband, but a team like Chasmak, who started off quite shakily, hadn't really found their flow, their playstyle, and we've seen this rise of confidence, this rise of aggression. And now after the PMECT, for that to kind of go away, it's a bit of a shame. I was talking to Azer, and he was saying that he has to dip away from the competitive scene because of school. He doesn't have time, and the rest of the team, Trazen, Pocus, and Shadowend, they're kind of going to go their separate ways to different teams. So bittersweet, but you gotta say, it's quite obvious that they're trying to go out with a bang, right? They're trying to end on a high, and that in itself is pretty valiant.
Oh man, that's always bittersweet because I've been around the competitive scene for a while when I was actively playing, and yeah, there were like some really good players that came and go in the 3 years that I played, and it was everybody within the community is always sad to see them go. But life calls sometimes, and it's hard to balance playing competitive and whatever else you may have going on in your life, because we've alluded to this a lot. These players on your screens that you guys are watching right now, they put in an insane amount of hours daily practicing, and many of them don't get paid at all for it, right? Many of these teams don't have a formal esports org, salarying them, and many of them that do have one, the salary is usually not a livable wage either. They're still having to grind other priorities in life. So hearing that out of Chasmak, my heart definitely goes out to them. But I do respect seeing them trying their hardest and playing their hearts out, even though they know they won't be a team together in the future. It's amazing to see just how much effort they're putting in and how much they've started to shine towards the later stages of this tournament.
Well, let's get back a little bit more specifically to this game, to be fair, as we've gone on a bit of a, philosophical monologue in a good way overall. We see YMCA, they did take a bit of damage as they went for that kind of drop onto the kind of more mainland coastal line side, grabbed a couple of vehicles. Luckily, to not suffer casualties, to be fair, but now they've made it to their normal drop spot in Milta. What do you make of this phase one? I think it's pretty good. You can't argue with it. It's pretty centralized, but that north of the river situation, that does pose a bit of risk.
Yeah, so this circle is pretty vanilla. Usually, I would say in a circle like this, it wouldn't go north and it wouldn't keep the river in play, but just by the nature of this tournament, we've seen that river. Anytime it's on the map and there's a slight chance of it actually, being kept in play, it has been kept in play. And it's been, really difficult for these teams to adjust to it. But actually, I feel like by now, these teams, because they've played that type of river play so many times, they're probably more comfortable than most teams and most other teams of their, caliber when it comes to zones like that.
There's a bit of an issue with the audio. I don't know if the stream can hear us, but we'll continue to commentate. We'll continue to push on. It's all good in the hood. So look, seeing as we kind of can't be heard, and just for poops and giggles, if it comes back randomly and people are like, what the hell are they talking about? Vanilla shake or chocolate shake? Which do you prefer if you're going to McDonald's or anywhere else?
I'm a vanilla person.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not a big chocolate fan. By the way, Rex and 7-Up are getting into a little bit of a skirmish right there, just southwest of Rozhok. From what I can tell in the kill feed, Rex is coming out on top. They've gotten a thirst onto the 7-Up team. So speaking about Rex, hold on. What kind of jersey are you? What kind of shirt are you wearing?
Okay, bro. I found it in a bin somewhere. So I was like, look, in this eco sustainable world that we're trying to head towards, it looks an okay jersey. Be a little bit smelly, but I'll wear it. It is indeed, of course, I joke, the Rex Spec jersey. It's genuinely one of my favorite jerseys to wear. It doesn't mean that I'm biased to Rex Spec, of course, but it is one of my favorites. And hey, maybe it's rubbing off. Maybe Rex Spec are getting the look of the Irish, because they've just eliminated the whole of 7-Up and picked up 3 elimination points.
Yeah. We tuned into that engagement on the later side of things, but it did look like Rex had the favorable side of the hill. Their side of the hill was more on the high ground. But that smoke could have been placed a little bit better so that his top power half of his body wasn't peeking out. But
or just don't loot.
You can loot, but be a little bit more cognizant of your
Well,
surrounding
maybe,
areas.
yeah, maybe get
Yeah,
into cover behind the hill, do a bit of scouting, then you loot up. Whereas,
yeah.
phase 2 has just popped up, and I'm not saying teams are like absolutely ready to fight, but also you're at the tail end of one circle, the start of the
Mhm.
next. You should know, and this is kind of a somewhat centralized area of phase 1. Teams are gonna be, it's headshot hills, right? It can hold 3 to 4 teams, and you can get shot from pretty decent distance. So I genuinely say, Raspu, you got caught napping, my friend.
Yeah, also they were at the center of the first circle.
Yeah,
So
there you go.
just given the fact that alone, you got to expect teams to be in the area. And you can see Real Tiger 9. We were saying that they needed to step up a little bit compared to their counterpart team of
Yes.
V100
Perfect.
and one knock. And then now they're going aggressive and they're doing like a 2-2 type of push to see if they could get the opening. Now that they have got an
Oh,
opening,
nice.
they're sending the other player in for more of a full committal. You see right there, the 2-2 pull up. I love that. I absolutely love that because if they didn't find the opening, they hold their split and maintain their previous control. But now that they have, they're fully committing for the extra
Oh
eliminations,
my
and they get
god.
another one. Real Tiger 9 really stepping up to the plate today, especially given the fact that D100, their community counterpart team, is not playing.
That was Game Lord level of play from Real Tiger 9, in my opinion. The simple thing from Nazgod, such as throwing out the smoke near the top of the hill, so if that Rexpect player did peek on over, he was much more likely to survive, right? And that
Mhm.
meant that he was able to be supported by his teammate. The suppressing fire came out. As you said, 2 people rolled up. Happy days.
Yeah, it's really clean execution there, and it seems like we might have a little bit of an issue here. Not
It's
sure.
frozen for you too as well, yeah?
Yes, the
Okay,
screen
I
is
was like, is
frozen
that
for
my
me.
internet or something like that? Uh, okay. So it seems like we're going back to studio, back to our faces. I presume our audio can be heard as well at this stage. Don't know when it came back, to be perfectly honest. I don't know if the feed is gonna come back, Sute, but
Mhm.
from what we've seen so far, I know we're back to studio, but we
Yeah.
couldn't have kind of ended on a real kind of stronger note with how Real Tiger 9 played that engagement.
Yeah, Real Tiger 9 played that really well. Same with Rex. You know, Rex in the initial engagement, we didn't get to see too much of it when they took
True.
out
With
7 Up.
7 Up.
But it's really cool to see
Yeah.
as, you know, we're so well into this tournament that these teams, Rexpect, Real Tiger 9, 7 Up, these are not teams that usually
Yeah.
participate in early engagement fights. These are teams usually that just try and stay alive and then see where the circle goes. But these I will say, to put it simply, lower caliber teams, as far as, you know, the beginning of the tournament goes, they're starting to display higher and higher sense of confidence and
Yeah.
executions and playing more like you mentioned it. You alluded Real Tiger 9's, you know, play with the smoke a little bit to like how Game Lord sometimes sets up their preemptive fights. So they're definitely
Yeah.
learning a lot from, you know, the VOD reviews, and hopefully, you know, with us too casting, since we love pointing out the goods of, you know, some of the teams, the top teams, what they do, how they do it. um I hopefully they're also able to learn something from, you know, the casting side of things, because we're pointing out a lot of the positives that the top teams are doing.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm just really happy that I highlighted maybe part of why Real Tiger 9 has slipped up a little bit is because they were being a bit too passive, and they just
Mhm.
proved in that engagement that, hey, proactivity, that's a
Yeah.
good thing. It's gonna get, especially early game, first couple of circles. Let's go. Let's go indeed. Well, we're gonna go for a bit of a break. Unfortunately, there's a bit of a technical issue where the game audio went out and then it essentially paralyzed the spectator mode for us. So things are being restarted. We're gonna go to a break and hopefully we'll be back with the end of game 1 in a couple of minutes. Sorry about it. See you in a few. Welcome back, and once again, apologies for the issues that we are suffering here in the broadcast. It is out of our control per se. Zute, one question for you. Did you walk under a ladder today?
No, I did not.
Maybe it was me then. Because it seems like just the luck is against us right in this game one. We have a great initial start, and then things go kaput on the production side. And unfortunately, the update is that we can't show you the rest of game number one. We've lost the spectator feed, and we're going to have to wait until game number two. It does mean that we're essentially going to have a little bit of an extended break before game two. But let's have a little bit of a kind of a chit chat, Zute, in terms of maybe your thoughts on a couple of things. Free baller, open. The door is open basically for you to talk about whatever the hell you want to.
Well, so let's talk about the evolution of these teams here, right?
Okay.
I think a really cool dynamic that we've seen is some teams that are really good at fighting initially, like at the start of the tournament. Let's say take Big, for example. Let's take even the 4 Romanian men. I think they came out, at the start just more on the aggressive side. I think teams like that over the course of this tournament has slowly adjusted and tried to play a bit more rotational focus to get into the late game to get the chicken dinners, right? We've seen Big start to adjust to do that, and they started doing better, and they actually got a chicken dinner, like a big chicken dinner recently. And so that's really good to see. And then on the opposite side of things, teams that played more rotational, that played more passive, like just in the beginning of this game, we saw, like Rexpect, for example. They're not a team that we've ever really seen fight early. And same with Rio Tiger 9. They're usually a team that's a bit more passive. And for those teams, that's how they started out the tournament playing. And now they're kind of doing what, the other teams did at the beginning, like Big, like play more aggressive, go for the picks, go for the eliminations. And at the end of the day, it's like no style is the absolute correct one. Both styles of gameplay have different strengths and weaknesses, but for a team to be, a tip-top team overall at the very end of the day, you can bet your butt they know how to do both. So it's cool to see, teams focus on their strength, and then once they get their strength kind of down more, they're like, okay, what's our weakness? What are we doing wrong in this tournament? Then they, shift their style to another style to practice that instead.
Yeah, and to kind of touch upon what you kind of mentioned during the break about Nova, for example, they're the kind of team that will have pretty big and heavy spits up until like phase 5, phase 6, right? And to the regular person, even someone like myself, I'm like scared of that because I'm like, what? You're so heavily split this late into the game? Because the natural thing is when you hit phase 4, kind of band together a little bit more easily because you're naturally going to have more teams around you. But because Nova have this kind of foundation of synergy, that foundation of experience, that foundation of, at the end of the day, credit to Jimmy, strong IGLing and confidence, they're like, no, we're fine where we are now. The plan is there. We'll execute it. And it works like 9 times out of 10 in the right moments. It works. So you're right. Having that kind of like the best of both worlds, hard to pull off, but it is definitely possible the more you work on it.
Yeah, I think the reason why they could play so split, I mean, since we bring up Nova, it's a team I follow very closely, especially as an analyst. I'm always trying to figure out how do they do it. I've watched some of their streams, and an interesting approach that they have, like mentality-wise, is when they play split, when a player, gets picked off doing a split, or whatever the case might be, the blame or the responsibility, to put it in a better word, is never on the supporting players. It's always on the player that got knocked. So their focus is like, what could have you done to allow for your supporting players to help you out more? Not, like, you shouldn't have been there in the first place. You should have been closer to me. It's more like, no, you should be there. You need to figure out how to be there and stay alive. And you need to figure out how you can position yourself in a way and stall for time in a way where your support can have enough follow-up and etc. So that's just their approach to the game from like a very early stage like mindset, and it shows. It shows they're the
Big
one
time.
team that could play more split than any other PMGC level team and have it be effective.
Yeah, and I would argue to kind of use what you said to highlight what has been an issue. I would say that's also a big reason why, let's say, with all due respect, North America hasn't had a team in the highest global stage in 2 years. Because in the opposite sense, it's so natural for North American teams to blame the next person the second something goes wrong. Instead of actually, like you said about Nova, taking a step back and going, okay, what could have you done better? Right, because we can't necessarily control what anybody else does. We can only control what we do, how we pull something off, and how supportive we can be to our teammates. So I think what you said is absolutely dead right, and on the opposite end, it's part of why, unfortunately, some teams in North America, for the most part, have floundered when it comes to reaching that highest level of PUBG Mobile.
And speaking about North America, like on the European side of thing, and I think globally, I think the biggest mistake teams make globally as compared to like the way Chinese teams approach the game is when you do something and it goes wrong, it does not mean it was incorrect. It just means the execution was wrong. So many times when I used to play competitive, I would try to play more split. I've always been, you know, a style of like individuality is the most key thing to having a successful team. Like, you should be able to do this on your own, especially coming from an IGL standpoint, right? I'm always the one kind of scouting, going to positions by myself to figure out information, to try and open up flanks. It's a lot of individual play. So I think individual play at the end of the day is king. And when sometimes players do individual plays, the first reaction is, oh, why did you do that? Just stick with us next time. Or they'll try something and it'll go wrong, and they'll shut down the idea completely and be like, you would have just been fine if you just, you know, stayed in this compound together, right? It's like, I think that's the biggest mistake teams around the world make. It's like when you're trying higher level stuff, it will go wrong, but it doesn't mean it's incorrect.
Yeah, exactly. And confidence comes into a lot of that individually, and a big part of why, you know, the Chinese meta, or I suppose Chinese teams, have been so strong when it comes to like a global stage is because throughout their years of competitive, they've played an FPP, which requires a higher level of confidence because you've less perspective. A question I have to you is, they're switching to TPP. Do you think that might end up changing the confidence and mentality of Chinese players and teams, because they might get a little bit lazier over the next year and a half because they naturally have more perspective? Or do you think, as can be in the kind of Chinese culture, they're just gonna continue to have that confidence in every stage?
No, I'll answer this question very quickly because I think we got some updates as far as what's going on with the first game. So to very quickly, Chinese teams are stubborn. They are very set in their playstyle in the sense of like TPP or FPP. We should be able to make our strategies work regardless. So they're gonna keep pounding away at like perfecting it, no matter the disadvantages that come their way with a TPP shift. So I don't think they're going to get any lazier. If anything, they're going to work even harder to continue to play the way that they usually can. Oh, and overcome the TPP, so to say, disadvantage.
Okay. Yeah, I think that was well answered, and it's something that, of course, remains to be seen. I know we're not talking about the European scene, but I think it was nice to have a bit of a conversation around, and hey, it might rub off on towards the European community. We're back on over towards an update and what's going on here in today's games. To remind you, if you've just joined us, we were able to watch a small part of Game 1, but unfortunately a little bit of a hiccup in the back end meant that it went kaput and we weren't able to tune into the rest of the game. However, we do have the match rankings for you guys.
Oh, wow.
And surprise, surprise, what you mentioned about the members of Big, and it's off the back of what was honestly a horrible day for them.
Yeah.
32 points, chicken dinner with 17 eliminations.
Oh, this was such a... this would have been... Oh, I'm disappointed we missed this game.
I'm
genuinely sad because not just Big, Real Tiger 9.
Yes.
We saw the very beginnings of them change up their style, be more proactive, and we were congratulating them, and then the stream died, and we don't know what happened. I mean,
they broke the streak.
They broke. I mean, and then they finished in second overall with 12 eliminations. Wow, this would have been an amazing game to watch and cast over. But
31 kills between the top two teams. That's nearly half the lobby in 2 of the 16 teams. That's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, it drops off a lot. The next highest is 9 eliminations, and then after that it's just 0.
Oh yeah,
1,
Jesus,
3. I wonder how the zone ended to give
Real
Tiger 9, Bravis, and Big such a huge majority of the kills. Like,
what I'm thinking, what my automatic thinking is, and I'll probably ask the players in the server. My thinking is that it ended around ruins, and Team Big stuck to the northern side of the circle and got a lot of eliminations from the northern side of the river. And they got a lot of eliminations on the northern side of the river, crossed in some way, shape, or form later on and towards the south side, and then picked up the rest of the eliminations and, of course, the chicken dinner, because that would nearly also then complement Real Tiger 9's control on the south side. So the kind of top two teams had the north and the south controlled until the very end. That's my guess, at least, on how the circle ended.
I'm gonna have to say, just check out their socials, because some of the big players, you know, they have an Instagram, they post stuff. I'm sure they're recording footage, right? And Real Tiger 9, I'm not too familiar with them on the social side, like if they have an Instagram or how often they post. But I do know a lot of these players here that you guys are watching. Look them up on Instagram, see if they, you know, might have recorded some of the footage. Yeah, Imperium's doing that right now. I was about to do that too.
I'm investigating. Mihi put no stories for Mihi. A little bit slow to that one. He's getting old. Nothing from Azaro.
Azaro's active.
Yeah, he's active, but he doesn't have any stories. Nothing from Swave and Beast. Let's see if Beast has anything. Nope. His last story from Beast is a sexy selfie. Just saying. Tell you, absolute thirst trap, Beast. But either way, yeah, it's interesting, and we will find out how the circle ended in some way, shape, or form of the big players. But it's a feels sad, man, that we didn't get to see how this game played out visually. Yeah. But so happy to see Big bounce back from a poor day yesterday with that gigantic result, man.
I want to talk a little bit about Bravis and Glor as well. So Bravis with 9 eliminations. That's a team that we don't usually, you know, speak on or focus on, but they had a really good showing in that previous game, and it's with 9 eliminations as well. So they definitely put in work. 4 placement points. That tells me they went out pretty early in the match, but the fact that they went out early with 9 eliminations is a really good sign. Glor with 0 eliminations and 12 placement points. Hey, you do what you got to do to get the points, and if that's like snaking it out, then so be it. So
yeah,
I mean, I wish we saw more of the game so that we could talk a little bit more about it. But Big, before this stream went down, we quite literally said Big is a team that's been focusing a little bit more on the late game to try and secure the chicken dinner because they realize that's their weakness. And then this game, they go ahead and pull it off.
Definitely.
Before the stream died, we talked about Real Tiger 9, how they're a little bit too passive, and they should be a bit more proactive in what they do, their rotations, their fights. And then they end the game with a 12 elim game and a 20-point. It's like, we're not making this stuff up, guys.
No.
Like, we have been watching these teams quite closely, and we actively see the efforts they're trying to make and the adjustments they make, and it is bearing fruit for them. So that is really cool to see.
Yeah, for sure. And kind of correlating that game 1 result to the overall standings, as much as, Chasmak only got 4 points in that first game for the French community, and this is where I'll lead into something else as well. Germany and Romania, they're tripping over each other, right? They're tripping over each other, and that's kind of hurting me. And that's where, once again, I'm kind of going to ask the question as we get into game 2. At what point do they think about possibly dropping on France and shutting them down? Because if they're tripping over each other, they're not helping that climb to really challenge the French community.
I gotta agree, but it's just the nature of competitive, right? They're tripping over each other because when push comes to shove, neither team wants to give way to the other, and maybe overall they're gonna just end up taking each other down. But you do what you gotta do, and we're on to the second match of Miramar. A very skewed playing path towards the south, which is never a good thing because the southern side of Miramar is where less of the cities are for loot. Yeah. And of course, that's where the more tricky part of Miramar comes into play as far as rotations goes. So teams don't want to drop down there to begin with and give them a southern playing path. They're going to be kind of forced to stretch up more towards the northern side. And Mega Power and Rio Tiger 9. Okay, I'm seeing this already. Rio Tiger 9 is giving up Picado. They're jumping out early in the playing path and going north on the northeast side. They might actually run into the Uncanny with the new adjustment, but Mega Power will claim Picado for themselves. Real Tiger 9, even off the back of a really strong game, they don't want to do a hot drop fight, which I can't blame them for, right?
No.
Playing proactive and aggressive does not mean you have to contest the spot you start from. We see teams, like really strong teams, that are good at fighting, give up a drop spot because they're just like, we're just going to play our game, our rotations, and we'll play proactive and aggressive later on in the game when we have more within our control, and it's not like an RNG stuck hot drop fight. So I respect Real Tiger 9's decision to give up Picado, especially after they just had a massive success playing the way they want to play in the first game.
Once again, thank you everyone watching for bearing with us through the technical issues. Hopefully we should have a smooth game number 2 onwards, and I hope our conversation wasn't too boring and it was, to an extent, a little bit informative and interesting to share our thoughts. I trust you, Zute, so much in terms of feeling and asking you questions and picking your mind per se, that it makes things so much easier to deal with. It's also looking relatively easy for Lemniscate to deal with Rexpect, as a bit of a split outside of Picado is going against the members of Rexpect. Versace reacting quickly with the Uzi. And on the other side, Freezy picks up BK. Rexpect now going to be down to 2 players.
Oh, Respect not having a good time. We saw in game number 1 before the stream cut off, they went down to Real Tiger 9, and now they're going down early again. You were talking about putting on that jersey you're wearing as a little bit of an Irish luck for Rexpect, because they did take down 7-Up in the very beginning of the first game. But I think, Imperium, the Irish luck is not rubbing off on Rexpect. Instead, you're taking away all of Rexpect's luck and giving it to yourself by having that jersey on.
Bro, maybe they're not rubbing me hard enough. Anyway.
Oh my
Jesus Christ.
Did we just really go there?
Jesus Christ. Yeah, we went there. What can I say? I'm just gonna, cancel me. #cancel Imperium. I went there. But Glor looking to go there towards the members of Chasmak. Luckily, I don't have a Chasmak or Glor jersey, so there won't be any bad luck heading at least both these teams' way initially, so it's going to be up to their full control to really kind of get the job done. Again, the split from Chasmak will realistically hurt them, but I would like to see another one of the Glore players look to maybe go up to where Masha is to just possibly secure any kind of knock, because I wonder, does he know that it's just one Chasmak player there?
Potentially. As we go over to the other side of things, Canny still finishing out their rotation. If you look on the northeast side of the map, they're very heavily split right there. Real Tiger 9 actually inside El Azahar looting up. First circle's on your screen. This is a very good circle.
Yep.
Very centralized as far as, where the road access is and where the low ground is. So, of course, you got, a little bit of high ground mountain near the power grid. And then towards the south, if it goes there, well, then that's going to be a whole nother story in of itself. But it's looking like it's going to end somewhere on the more flat terrains of Miramar, potentially.
On a side note, Real Tiger 9, where they did drop specifically, I think it's taken a leaf out of the book of their UK compatriots, the 100, that normally drop in El Azahar. But because they're not playing in today's lobby, that little bit of kind of like, well, we know that our UK teammates aren't playing today, let's go there. They might not have obviously have massively predicted Uncanny, but Uncanny could have been thinking the same with the 100 not in today's games as well. But just to kind of highlight that, I think that's really, really good awareness and overall teamwork from the UK community.
Yeah, I really love the fact that we do have two teams playing for each community. The camaraderie is definitely something else.
So,
I just want to add on.
yeah.
As much fun as it is playing with a team, hold on, we do have a La Familia member isolated here. And he's trying to stall.
It's fine. I'd say continue with your point with all due respect. It's just one player La Familia. It's fine.
Yeah. I just want to point it out. I acknowledge it that something is about to happen. Potentially,
Fair.
It does look like it's gonna happen. But it's nice having teammates. But sometimes you get really annoyed of your teammates. And I imagine, he hops in through the window, Spider-Man style, and Wasted actually takes advantage of him. Switching over to M16. Oh, I wish he just kind of stuck with I believe he had the Tommy gun or the UMP in hand. But La Familia, they're going to try and get the revenge down to 2 players. Scratch that. They realize they might be a little bit too late. They're going to disengage instead. So, yeah, sometimes, you have your 3 teammates that you play with day in, day out. Sometimes they could get a bit annoying. And so I was just thinking it would be really cool to have another team that you don't necessarily interact with too often, but they're like, trying to get points with you, so you guys both share the prize pool. And so it's almost like a party, right? You live with, your 3 teammates for so long.
Oh my god.
It's like, oh man, I'm getting tired of these guys. But now you got another 4 people to kind of just hit up and be like, yo, you guys are doing great, or hey, give us some pointers. Like, I feel like that's a really cool dynamic that these teams get to experience and play under with this community style format of the tournament.
Big time, and I think it's overall been very well executed across the board. 4 remaining men looking to execute Red Moon. It seems like the Italian community in a spot of bother across the 2 teams in this Miramar game. Lovely shots by Sarah will find Coco. Suppressing fire by Ed will allow him to stop the confirmation. Sorry, no, the confirmation has come through, but not quite enough to force a trade at the hands of 4 Romanian men. So that leaves Red Moon down to 3 players, and in my eyes, they're just better off dipping in this time. Ed, cut your losses, move away, because the 4 Romanian men players, they're hunting, man.
Oh, yeah. They realize Red Moon has a split on them, but they'll just isolate 1 player at a time. And you saw Ed kind of realize that. He started backing off immediately after he's like, oh, I'm the closest player now next to this aggressive 4 Romania men team. And my teammates don't have a clear supporting sightline behind me, so I'm going to have to readjust and disengage. Hopefully Ed could get it out in that sticky situation. He is looking like he's kind of stuck between a few members right there on that mini-map. But the circle does shift to the southwest. Big doing that Chumacera split that we saw so many weeks ago, where they held a huge split and they ended up picking up a chicken dinner as well. So they're going to continue doing that split. Very comfortable with that position of the map.
Ed from Red Moon, like I said, being hunted by 4 Romanian men. Out for blood! And indeed, the knock comes through the window. It's going to be somewhat traded by the 2 remaining players of 4 Romanian men, but I can't see the Romanian side really losing this one. We'll have to wait and see what Red X can do. We'll have X marks the spot. His teammate is back across the road, so I'm left kind of scratching my head in terms of, are you engaging or are you disengaging? What do you really want to do, Red Moon?
They were seeing if they could get a few more shots in before the disengage is called out, but they couldn't, so Red Moon will end up losing Ed. Ed, of course, was in a tough position. I feel like he might have been able to stay alive if he kind of readjusted quicker, but that was not the case. And YMCA getting into a fight with Big, and it's a huge split from Big, too. This is almost like a... Oh, never mind. Big has readjusted their defense to come support the team.
Lovely.
So very good adjustment right there. And picking up 2 eliminations, maybe even more, if YMCA decides to stay committed to this.
It could be the thing where, as Mihik gets knocked by Larix, where Big low-key recognized that they got away with a massive split a previous Miramar game. It might not be the same this time around, so that swiftness of reaction by the IGL Mihik to lead this team to join back together is very positive indeed. Only 1 confirmation coming through in terms of elimination point for Big. And I really appreciate that Larix isn't, like, instantly going for the revive. He's creating that suppression. He was firing shots, throwing nades. And Deso is now in a much more comfortable position to provide that level of backline support while the revive is coming through.
Yeah, absolutely love that. That's a very smart, mature play. Keep up the pressure, keep up the spacing before you commit to the revive. Because if you go for the revive too quickly, and the enemy players don't see you peeking and shooting them, they'll feel more comfortable to get closer. And then you're going to get taken out. So, very good mature play from the YMCA team to recover their knock player. And they'll try and retreat, but this is Big we're talking about, right? Big. Beast is already pushing up really close. Beast wants to continue this engagement. And I'm not surprised that the rest of Big is following suit.
By the way, that play, yes, it was mature, but I also want to see it a standardized reaction to a knock. A standardized reaction to a bit of an engagement from an opposing team. The reason why I highlight it somewhat so heavily is because it's not happening enough. You will see it more often in the full competitive play, but I want to see it more standardized across the whole of competitive PUBG Mobile meta.
Pretty much as, you know, the game is out longer, the standard for each tier of, you know, teams becomes higher, right?
Exactly.
And of course, the teams at the very top have to constantly, you know, break new boundaries, you know, just become an even bigger and better team than they already were. So, you know, the limits are constantly pushed. And I mean, that's what I love about competitive. I have seen metas and strategies develop over time that then kind of almost become obsolete because there's a new and better and more effective way to optimize and play the game. Speaking of which, Big continuing to optimize their aggression as they catch out 2 more members of YMCA. Beast might get knocked and finished though, because I don't think he's in a position that he could stay safe in. Beast, it looks like he's kind of out in the open, but the suppressive fire might be keeping Big alive right now, or Beast alive, should I say.
Yeah, it's more so the fact that the double knock from Big, Deso is in a place to confirm that elimination onto Beast, and he's just gonna really disengage as a solo. It was a good reaction initially, but I would maybe say YMCA should have disengaged a little bit more heavily away from that position. You could argue that Big pushed when other teams wouldn't. But when you see on your kill feed that it's big that's engaged on you, you know, it should be natural. 2 and 2 together makes 4. Big are gonna push it, so you gotta disengage ever more. They didn't, and they kind of paid the price. Bravos could be paying the price against Shadow and all the same. They do indeed pay the price by losing 2, leads them down to a duo.
Bravos did have a good game last game, but doesn't look like it's going to repeat for this one. And you're absolutely right about Big. They pushed away from the center of the circle to chase down that team. So maybe that team was like, yes, this is Big, but they literally have center circle. Maybe they won't chase us all the way away from the circle, but it is Big. They'll do it. They don't care. And, I mean, we're only heading into phase 4. This is when, you know, you want to prioritize the circle. So one circle earlier, Big probably felt like, hey, we can make do with it. We don't have to have perfect positioning right now. And when I say perfect, I put that in air quotes during circle number 2, right? Or circle number 3. It's more important to have that in circle 4 and onwards. So Big still playing to their strengths, and also with the focus on the late game as well. We'll see how they do for this match around, as the next circle did pop on up. Let's see where the circle has decided to go. We have quite a few teams engaged in battle still, and wow, this is going to be a fun one, Imperium.
It is. It's right on top before Romania, man. You can control the north quite confidently, but you really got to time that push if you're kind of outside. Mega Power 7 up, of course. Real Tiger 9. However, Real Tiger 9 down to 2 players, and they're really trying to clean up the fight on the side of Red Moon. So I really look at Mega Power as to be the one to really control that north, because they can use the massive dip just on the side of the road to peek up and shoot, and really manipulate a bit more traffic, push teams against each other. So when the next circle pops up, they have an even easier entry point into phase number 5.
Yeah, that would be how they would want to play it ideally. But with this game, you never know what could happen. A team might just crash into you like haphazardly, as Big making a play onto the Eastern Stars here. Now, Eastern Stars' position is a very strong one. There are way more other play options for Big to go to, but I guess they decided they want this one for whatever reason. It's not going too well, as the Big team is falling apart. Actually, Eastern Stars somehow have 3 of their players knocked down. So,
oh my lord, Mazzaro!
Wait, how?
I don't know. I don't really know, but I'm here for it.
I would want to watch that fight back at least 2 more times. Honestly,
yeah.
Eastern Stars had the compound. They had 2 players within the compound giving supporting fires from different angles. They had 2 players close up to the wall with cover, and Big just pushed up from the...
Okay.
I don't know how they...
Based on what you said to me, can I provide a speculative reason why it went wrong for Eastern Stars?
Go for it.
They relied too heavily on the wall, right? Because yes, it's hard cover. Yes, it allows you to peek and shoot up, but there's also no real guarantee that a team isn't really going to push you, so that wall becomes essentially cancelled out. And it seems like Big overall did that. It was a larger spread, but it seems like they pushed aggressively enough to negate that wall protection that Eastern Stars tried to use.
I mean, they had to have hit some... They had to have hit some insane shots too, because the 2 players within the compounds that had the cover that were peeking and firing, they must have got lasered the second they peeked. That's the only way Big could have pushed the way they did and came out on top. But I mean, that's Big after all, right? They're a team that specializes in fighting, and they're playing to their strengths. Their gun skill has to be on super point today. I mean, they picked up the chicken dinner in game number 1, and I think Big just only lost 1 player in that engagement, where they could have easily lost all of their players. So let's see where the next circle does shift on up to, as we're about to hit the next phase.
Up towards the northwest still, though, for Romania, man. They have the compound, they have the spread, they have the control.
for Romanian men. Definitely getting circle blessed here. But it's not always as easy as getting the zone, as multiple teams
my
might
God,
start
look
pushing
at
into
this.
them.
But look at
What
this. See the reaction on the minimap, Zute?
Yeah.
Instantly sending a couple of players down more towards that southeastern edge of the circle because they know they have to cover their backs. Easily teams can enter around them.
Yeah, those adjustments are always beautiful to see. Real Tiger 9, this player, playing a little like tipsy toes. They're just staring at each other pretty much. And he's going to drop that smoke down and try to regroup with his teammate. His buggy wheels get shot up down to 1 HP. And he'll manage to survive to fight for another few minutes.
Oh, no. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Look at the styling and profiling from Deso. Stuntman Deso comes into play. It's like, flippity floppity. This elimination is my property. Let's go, Deso. You gotta love it. Like, you gotta love it.
Deso is literally his own stunt man. He does not need a stunt double. Flipping the buggy and then hopping out and just absolutely destroying that player. But we're coming into the late stages of the game now, Imperium. 32 left alive, going into Circle 6. Oh, it's 360 fights all around. And how is 4 Romanian men going to counter and adjust to all of this chaos around them? I think that formation adjustment you pointed out is coming into huge play, as it is looking effective for them in keeping back multiple teams.
2-2, can't argue in this phase 5. Greek Army, a team that have definitely proven themselves as a successful team pushing on the edge in an aggressive, coordinated manner. They do still need to get rid of the rest of Uncanny. And with a lovely nade being choked by 4 Romanian men, it's all going horribly wrong for the Greek side, as they're left with just one player up. Papa is a thorn in the side. They're going to have to emancipate from Papa Greek Army in the future with how much hard work and danger he's pulled out on your side as he looks to try and wrap around on the underside. Floor, last player up, looks for Mazzaro, but a beast nade. Take care of them by now. Another elimination point for the German side, and they are on fire right now.
The bait and switch, you saw that player take shots at one, and the other one crept up closer with the grenade. Good teamwork out of those two from Big. And the circle shift has once again gone to the northwest, giving Chasmak Gaming a prime opportune chance to close out this game with the chicken dinner. They just have to take care of the Lemniscate team that's right behind them. They have the high ground, but they don't have much cover as Shadowin gets knocked. And Lemniscate, some trades do come through. Pocus getting one there. Shadowin and Azernog. Looks like Shadowin is a little bit further away as Pocus tries to move up for the revive. But I would have to say, finish out the fight. Just finish it out with the revive on one player. The other three have to play aggressive now.
I agree. I was wondering where the support was for Shadowin in that moment. But now they've got the job done. Now they're going to be able to look to try and clean it up. But the M249 is going to spray on through. Bippy bop. Let's go. Azer. Going to retire after PMECT. Like I said, ending on a high note. They do finish off Lemniscate.
Lemniscate go down. Greek Army are still alive. Just down to one player. I don't think they'll be able to get that revive as the zone is closing. And Big, up to 11 eliminations, down to the last player of Beast. They have rotated and navigated this late game really well. Like, I know they're not in a position to get the chicken, but this is much, much better than the Big we saw in the early days, where we won't even see them in the top 5. But they're in the top 5 with eliminations, as well as Chasmak Gaming getting taken down by 7-up.
It's nearly over for the French side. A little bit of help for Trazen, but he plays around the rock, uses the smoke, but not enough. The body power ends up taking him down, and 7-up will stay tall in this fight. 4 teams left. I thought Trazen was going to clutch it out because he certainly did a hell of a good job in that moment.
Oh, that was with a UMP just now, Imperium.
Oh, yeah.
You ask why the UMP is so used? He just did that with a UMP.
Boom.
From distance. Not an M4, a UMP, and we all know the UMP shreds players close range. So I mean, UMP, that's definitely the go-to gun. Long range and close range lethality. I mean, maybe it's just a 4 Romanian player that's absolutely cracked using it at long range like that.
If my girlfriend was a good in PUBG Mobile, she's the UMP. Just gotta throw it out there. Just gotta throw it out there. Last player of Greek Army, Stybone. Just gonna stay and slide behind the rockets just inside the circle and shifts towards them. But of course, that's gonna make it harder because 4 Romanian men, for example, as they do have control with Rana and towards the western side of the circle, are gonna be able to focus on that last player of Greek Army. But 7up gonna get the job done, and a little bit of a mistake by Dewey means he gets knocked.
He is not just getting knocked. He's not gonna get revived either.
No.
A very low chance. So that's the Doobie play that position. His position there was to take shots from long range, but he's got to be he should have been a little bit more aware of how long he's going to peak and which players might be ready for him to peak. So he gets eliminated. 4 remaining men go from 4 players down to 3. A little bit of a slip up there, if I may say so. But they have more control of the zone. The team of 7up is going to have to push into them. And I don't think anyone knows yet of Stybone's existence.
Trigger discipline. My Greek friend. Wait.
Oh, you take that one.
Spray comes through. You clean it up. Redox bot, you didn't see what's coming. And that's going to be an elimination point going up against 4 Romanian men. But Sans, he's down on his knees. Church looks for Stybone. Can they breach inside the circle for 7up, the Czech Republic / Slovakia community representatives? Can they grab a chicken dinner inside game 2? Stybone still alive, but he's a little bit caught off. Oh. And Sarah will get some sweet revenge, but we're down to a 1v2 in the favor of 4 Romanian men. Church may have the symbols in his IGM, but does he have the symbols to win? No, he doesn't. It's going to be a symbolic victory for 4 Romanian men.
4 Romanian men. An amazing finish. Very well played with adjustments throughout, getting the circles. They still had to push out, but the formations were really good. And even with that, 1-2-1 split towards the end where they lost their 4th player, that was a very good formation setup. I really love that. It's just the execution of that one player. A little bit of a slip up, but they still closed the game out with only 3 players up. No problems there whatsoever. So 4 Romanian men, they're looking strong. They're looking better than the Eastern Stars right now, just outright.
Yeah, you can't argue with that. Really can't argue with that. Stronger performance, stronger spread. Say what you want about the circle. Look, we saw when the shift went not like fully away from their compound, but to the point where their backs were a little bit exposed. Boom, 2-2 split. It's like, thank you. Just thank you, 4 Romanian men. Instantly noticeable, and it was rewarded with a chicken dinner. But big German community, German representatives, they're looking very confident so far. I think 17 eliminations in game 1. Zute, 11 eliminations in game 2. That's 28 in 2 games. Eliminations alone.
Yeah. So usually we could see them get those eliminations at the beginning stages of this tournament, but they go out in like top 10, top 9 or something. But now we're seeing them do that, but still making it towards the end game. So that is a definite overall sign of improvement and just actively changing up the way they play aggressive. There's more foundation and, they're more cognizant of positioning and the late game setup plan, not just taking any witch fights that they see. So I think big 4 Romanian men, Greek army, the 100, I could name probably like 3 more that have all shown signs of evolving over the course of this 3 weeks.
This is crazy. I can't wait to see how it continues for 4 Romanian men, not only today, but across the final days of the tournament. 2 games down, 2 more to go. We are going to go to highlights, After highlights, we'll have the results of Game 2. Then we'll be moving into Game 3 in Sanhok. Don't go away. Thanks for sticking with us, and we'll see you in a few minutes. And we're back here in the PMECT. I don't know what day it is, to be honest. My mind's kind of crumbled. But either way, we've had 2 games down today, Zute. We only saw a little bit of game 1, but we saw all of that game 2. It was pretty damn good.
I mean, we didn't get to see game 1, but the results looked amazing, right? The results just fall straight in line with this ever-developing story of some of these teams here. And game 2 was an amazing game in of itself, the way the 4 Romanian men played that, and along with Big and 7-Up, you know, the way they played into the late game. And Greek Army, they made it into the very late stages of the game too. So it's just continuing to look like really good games for a lot of these teams that we've really, you know, grown so fond of over the course of this tournament. Definitely.
Let's have a look at the match rankings from that second game in Miramar. 14 eliminations, 15 placement points, a total of 21. We highlighted that, to be fair, 4 Romanian men are the better of the 2 Romanian sides, at least at the moment.
Yeah, and then 7-Up. Big one for 7-Up. The first game we didn't get to see, but we highlighted Bravis, a team that's been, you know, struggling here and there. They stepped up. This time around, second game, 7-Up, you know, the team taking the second place overall for the match with 10 eliminations too. Like, very good game by 7-Up. Big, of course, continuing to be big, not just in elims, but in placement points. That's what you love to see out of the big team. Chasmak Gaming, well, I mean, that is a really solid performance still that they're, you know, keeping up. As far as their average, you know, points per game goes, if you want to include the last couple of days, I mean, they're at a whole nother stratosphere of average and points.
In game 1, the top 3 teams had a total of 38 kills, right? Or eliminations, should I say. In game 2, top 3 teams, 36 eliminations. So, like, top 3 in both games, pretty much half of the lobby, right? That's not something that we have seen too often. It's happened every game or so, but 3 teams stepping up to the plate each game is good to see. And of course, the consistency of Big, 10 points, 32, that's 42 in 2 games. Much needed as a sole German representatives in today's games, and it will, of course, put them very much back in the race for second place. Again, I'm going to reiterate, though, France, with the lead they have, Romania and Germany, they can't keep stumbling over each other.
Yeah, just to give a quick, you know, comparison to how well Big is doing today compared to yesterday, or should I say how well Germany alone is doing, is yesterday we had 2 Germanic teams playing, and I think after 4 games, you said they got a total of maybe 33
points, I believe. 33 points, yeah.
Yeah, so 33 points after 4 games with 2 teams playing, and today Big come in with a total of 42 as the sole Germanic team playing, with only 2 games down, with 2 more to go. So this is a complete 180 turn of events for the big team. But we're heading into Sanhok, where teams will have to get, you know, ready to do another 180 turn, as this is a completely different pacing, a completely strategy, you know, when it comes to trying to do well on a Sanhok map versus Erangel and Miramar.
Yeah. Simple, like, kind of summed up statistic to reiterate what you just said. Yesterday, Big, roughly, averaged 4 points per game. And today, in 2 games, 21 points per game. So, you know, like, that's about 4 times bigger. Well, actually, no, sorry, 5 times bigger. That's pretty big indeed. Phase 1 pops up, though, in this Sanhok game, and I call that a pretty successful Phase 1 circle, because even though it's kind of quite heavily down south, which isn't too common for a Sanhok game, Zute, it eliminates like a big chunk of that Northwest Island. So again, the teams only really need to think about the mainland and the Southwest Island for the time being.
So, Big versus Real Tiger 9 in Camp Bravo. We've seen Real Tiger 9 really step it up when it comes to being proactive, but how proactive have they stepped it up when it comes to facing off in a team fight with Big? If I had to put money, I would still put it on Big. as their just record of winning initial engagements in the 4v4s is at a very high percentage. And I think Real Tiger 9, even though they're playing better, they're going to try and run away from this fight. You see them trying to cross out, and I respect that. That's proactiveness. Actively disengaging. No, you don't like that?
For one simple reason. Real Tiger 9 had a player drop outside of Camp Bravo. That would have been a real clean opportunity to kind of provide a bit of a bait, right? Lure the members of Big into a position where that fourth player on the sideline would have been able to get at least one knock. I generally agree with you, but when I looked at the kind of drop area and where that player dropped from Real Tiger 9, the first thing I thought about was, oh, that's a really great opportunity to get a little bit of a surprise attack. Of course, presuming Big didn't see that player drop a little bit off kilter to the camp. Overall, yeah, and I suppose it kind of a little bit plays into my fear of Real Tiger 9 stepping back a little bit too much, and what we saw from them in the aggression of Game 1 and the success that followed. I was also expecting them to challenge Big in that fight.
Okay, so here's my counter.
I'm
gonna have to hard counter you. So, given that the fight they're fighting in Camp Bravo and off angle is pretty much useless. Those fights are all taken inside buildings, correct? You see those building structures. It's very hard to bait a player all the way outside to the wall. And even if you do manage to bait a player all the way outside to the wall, you're going to have to play in a way where you corner yourself up against that wall to allow for Big to still overall most likely win the fight. So it's like that off-angle player that had a potential to come in, it's like they're going to be useless. In a different drop setting, yes, that player could come in huge. And then number 2, you're worried about Real Tiger 9, becoming passive again. The problem with them playing passive before was that they made no proactive decisions. They would sit around and wait for the enemy players to make a mistake to try and leverage, their own advantage. But here you see them actively deciding a disengagement. They didn't sit around and wait. They actively realized we have an off-angle player. This player probably can't help us. We're going to leave right now. We're not going to sit around and wait to see if something can happen in our favor. So I think it's proactive plays like that. It is a disengagement. It is them leaving and running away from a fight, but it is an active decision. And that falls in proactiveness. Like, when teams think, we have to play aggressive, it does not necessarily mean just run in at the enemy. It just means think faster, make faster decisions, and act faster. That's how real top-level teams carry through their aggression. And if thinking fast and acting fast is disengaging, that is still right on with playing as a really good, well-oiled team.
Dude, hey, this is why I love you, man. This is why I love you. For one of many reasons why I love you. Your ability to provide a hard counter in such a fair way, it's part of why I've learned so much off you casting in previous events. You're absolutely dead right. I was hard countered with that. My perspective was arguably quite narrow-minded based on your counter. Big time narrow-minded. Everything you said is dead on correct, and fair play to you, man. Because at the end of the day, like, the only way I'm always gonna get better as both an analyst and just a general lover of this game is by recognizing when someone said, "Wait, no, you're kind of wrong," or a hard counter, and then I'm like, "Yeah, hands up, yeah, you're dead right with that one." So well done. As this game continues on, Eastern Stars, Big, they're close by to each other. The last time they clashed, it was a little bit surprisingly, but overall, effectively won by the members of Big. This time around, a surprise couple of shots by Eastern Stars. A team that normally land on the eastern side of the Sanhok terrain, so I would argue that out of the two teams right now, Eastern Stars are a little bit more comfortable, a little bit more knowledgeable, and therefore a little bit more easily able to control the team around them. And you can see that flank coming out instantly. 2 big players wiped.
Big is walking into Eastern Stars territory, and it shows. This is their side of the map. This is their area that they're familiar with, that they use for rotations, and Big is not welcome. Multiple angles. First one from Athos, then another off angle. Distract the Big players, have them readjust, and then Athos comes in once again from another side angle. This team is getting ripped to shreds right now. And Big, I was just saying, they win a lot of their 4v4s, but those are more head-on engagements, whereas Eastern Stars, they set up a beautiful split trap, and maybe not even an intentional trap, but with the way they play split, it just so happens to be flexible enough that when an engagement does break through, they can look very dominant and have the flexibility of those positions lined up.
It also reinforces what you said about Real Tiger 9's disengagement, right? They avoided any kind of action with Eastern Stars. Big got cleaned up. We do see a push in Painan by Real Tiger 9, joined by Mega Power and Lemniscate. You've highlighted the strength of actually staying in Painan in this kind of circle. I had somewhat kind of not countered it, but you know, given a different perspective in the past, and once again, you've kind of shown me why that is the case. Chasmak with the rotation. I'm not going to argue with it. Possibly a little bit too late in the circle, but let's see where phase 2 pops up and how rewarded they're going to be with this kind of rotation.
I just love seeing them all taking a little bit of a stop to heal up, because the blue is starting to chunk. Pocus, I think Pocus is like, I like to live dangerously, you know?
Yeah.
You guys could heal up to 80. I'm going to sit right here at 20% health, and I'll be perfectly fine with this. Glor getting caught in the road opening. Definitely not the place you want to be at this stage in the game when you're rotating. Too much openness and too much angles of lines of sight. You see YMCA actually being the ones taking some shots onto Glor. And I do believe they got shot at from the other side as well. So Glor, not the best rotational pathing by any means when it comes to that area.
Not in comparison to their playstyle. And arguably, well, not arguably, I'd say justifiably, their skill level at the moment as a team. Other teams, like maybe, let's say, you know, Game Lord, Big, I'd say pushing in like that into that area of the circle, positive, because they're much more likely going to be able to handle it, deal with it, and of course, counter it in some way, shape, or form. Glor, they tried to go for the deep center, and they paid a price. Phase 2 did go more towards the northeast. It is hovering a little bit more heavily towards the mainland, but there's absolutely zero, and I mean zero guarantee that's gonna stay towards the mainland. And this is where I'm left wondering, why isn't anybody in the trifecta compound? To me, that's like the perfect place to go, because it's on the edge of the circle. You're able to, depending on the next couple of circle shifts, you have free access to either side of the map.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And trifecta would be a very good edge location. But I think the team that would usually be there decided to just play more center. So both positions, you know, could work out in either positional favor. I think we usually would see, like, maybe Lemniscate would be the team around that area. But they decided to rotate more center, and of course Painan, right, also being a really good viable location. But we'll see how the circle shift goes, as you know, many different ways to rotate around and play the rest of the map. Eastern Stars coming in from the east side already with 4 eliminations. Big down to 1, way deep in the blue. And Chasmak Gaming, throughout the stages of the Sanhok game, might just run into the Eastern Stars because they're coming in from the east side. They have given up their boatation, maybe ran out of gas, as rotating with boat does require a lot of gas. So they're coming in on foot now on the east side.
I also think based on the phase 2 shift, it would have been a hell of a lot riskier to have anyway gone closer to that mainland with a boat. So going on foot, as much as it takes more time and you take a little bit more blue zone damage, you're much more highly likely to stay alive. Phase 3 pops up, and like I said, no guarantee as it shifts back down towards the southwest. Where is it going to finish? Mainland? Southwest Island? I don't know. Do you know?
If I knew, I would still be playing competitive Imperium, because if I could guess the circles, I would have loved to win that $1.5 million that Nova got. But no, I don't know where the circle is going to go. Only speculations. And if anyone tells you otherwise that there's a way to predict circles, they are clickbaiting you, and that is completely false. Okay? Well, with that gotten out of the way, Eastern Stars.
Sorry. Can I just say, now I just picture you pulling a classic shocked face with the headline. This is how I predicted the Sanhok circle. ... But anyway.
Yeah, those posts like that are always clickbait to get those easy views. But we see Eastern Stars on the east side, and Greek Army with 2 eliminations already. They did lose 1 player, but I actually like that because it shows that they're not scared to fight regardless, even if they lose a player. And they came out a little bit on top, and Melis, you would think in that position it'd be a nice sneaky one, but he actually gets turned on there. So Melis goes down in 2v3 situation. I want to see Greek Army get a little bit aggressive. Don't allow for them to get that revive. That's a good one. That's a really good second knock. Now they just need to push up. One of their players does try to push up, but he goes down. And STY Brown shooting at a loot box right now, getting distracted. The drop shot goes through. Almost winning that engagement. It came down to a 1 HP difference, and Greek Army goes out. But it was a valiant stand by them. But I think it was an even better push by the 7-Up team. Really good job with trading players back and forth there.
I'm gonna a little bit disagree. I thought that was a bit too linear of a push from 7-Up. They had the body advantage coming into the fight, so technically they were always going to trade a little bit easier. I would argue if Greek Army had that 4th player, they would have won that fight. Because I love Skybone's position. It was on the kind of side of the hill. He played a bit of a sneaky play. And because of 7-Up's linear push up the hill, okay, they technically had a little bit of a counter because of that linear push. But again, that extra body allowed it to be a more of effective push. And I would argue they might not have known that Greek Army only had 3 players.
That is absolutely fair. 7-Up could have done better with that push. And to be honest with you, I wanted to give them some credit, right? They did end up winning the fight, and I know we've been hyping up the Greek Army every chance we get. So it's like both teams.
It's gonna be harsh, man.
I mean, I gotta give them credit because they still won the fight. But yeah, it could have easily gone the other way around if Greek Army had their 4th player, because then it'd be a full HP player versus a 1 HP player at the very end, and 7-Up would have ultimately lost that fight. But we're going on to the eastern side of the river. I mean, the river still kept in play. Painan also still kept in play. Now, Big, who's been baking in the blue this whole entire time, is going to run into Chasmak, and I don't think he is even sure. Nope. Now he knows.
He only had 1 first aid anyway left, so I wouldn't have expected Mazzaro to survive for much longer. However, giving the elimination point over to a French team isn't going to help in the overall standings. Just saying. Just putting it out there, and every point counts at the end of the day. Eastern Stars up to 5 eliminations. Their next challenge in front of them. However, Kapahal is a little bit on his own. Now in comes the cavalry with a vehicle to back end support Bravas. They have a good spread. I really love that 3-1 spread. 1 in the compound on the edge of the circle. It's that angle of pressure that will stop Eastern Stars dead in their tracks.
Papahala, you're making a big oopsie. You got lucky getting out of there. Your escape plan didn't account for the terrain or the rock right next to you. And no, he still does get punished. And I think that's a well-deserved punish because that was ugly. Everything was good with the smokes, with the angles, with the setting up support lines from your teammates. That all looks so beautifully done. And then you have to hurt my eyes by driving right into the open, getting stuck on a rock. And, well, he gets punished. He got punished for that. Eastern Stars now down to 4 when they could have easily had, or down to 3, I'm sorry, when they easily could have had 4 up. But very strong team still. They could still have a decent finish with those 3 players. Just depends on how the circle shifts and how well they play it, as the rest of the teams from the south side having to move up into the northern edge now.
La Familia. being very careful with how they move down to the building. They're aware that there's most likely a team inside that building. Now being chucked up by one of the La Familia players to try and drown him out. We'll have to wait and see if it works out. It has kind of worked out. However, with the UMP waste, it opens the door, says, knock, knock, who's there? We're there. La Familia ready to take over. Cleans up the engagement. Chasmak is on a third-party angle, but it's only a little bit of the team and Azer, possibly biting off more than he could chew. It's a third party on the other side. By one of the two remaining Glor players. Feels bad, man. Feels bad, man. Can Deso get a surprise attack? He nearly can. Great use of the door by Evil Boy, but not quite enough as he goes down. And Deso able to confirm that one up. That's going to anger the rest of La Familia. And indeed, YMCA go down.
YMCA still managed to get one elimination, which I don't think they should have. La Familia should have cleared it together, at least prevented the thirst. But
I agree.
Lesson to be learned right there. Rex coming in onto the wall of Pinon. The circle has shifted away from Pinon, so it is an eastern shift. We'll see very soon just exactly where it goes as Bra Boy running into a little bit of a fire. He will put it out. Does manage to get the first aid off, but it's too little too late for the revive and the jumping drop shot by Versace. Cleanly executed right there.
Yeah. Well done, Lemniscate. Especially Versace. He's a really talented player, Versace. I would say underrated in PUBG Mobile Europe, being perfectly honest. Overall. And now 7-Up. What can they do? They've had their struggles over the years, being represented by different orgs, different teams, different names. They haven't really hit the heights of success in which they've shown at times. Just volatility can get the better of them, maybe the pressure. However, with time can come maturity, can come later on success. But not this time around, not in this moment, not in this game. As Freezy steps out of the smoke, gets a knock onto Starkey. George is left up, so should I say. And someone who's going to repay the favor and says, anything you can do, I can do better.
Love that reference right there. And Sohn, he might have done better just a second ago, but he was not able to best that one. Loses that fight, loses that peak. Came down to a very slim HP difference.
And he
Stars,
had the right-hand peak as well.
Yeah.
He technically shouldn't have lost it.
Technically. But, you know, it comes to those micro bullets, those, you know, the hip fire. Sometimes it just favors another player slightly more. But right-hand peak is the more advantageous peak for sure. That I can 100,000% attest for. It's Trazen trying to peek up over the top. And nice little peek right there. Trazen just playing so patiently in the blue. That actually takes a lot of skill to be cooking in the blue and not feel pressure to peek an enemy preemptively, right? He just timed that peek until Clay, he felt like was not ready. And then he took the peek and won that fight very single-handedly. As Uncanny still have a bit of ways to go. Eastern Stars at this down to their last first aid. He's going to have to try and run it in. Going for a quick reload. I would argue just put the gun away and try and run in. Don't try and do both. You're going to not have time for either or. Uncanny getting pushed out from the blue. Mega Power coming into the late game.
Oh, a switch from Fella. Focus from one team to another is absolutely fantastic. Covering a hell of a lot of ground for his side, and his two teammates can't really support him because they're down on his knees, and another knock by Fella. Oh my god. Shut this guy down. He's on 5 eliminations for his team.
By the way, that grenade he tossed inside the building after he got the first knock and then he 180'd around and killed the player across the river, that grenade went inside the compound and he eliminated that team. Imperium, take a look at the minimap right now. There were players inside that compound, but Fella's fadeaway grenade toss landed right through that doorway and he eliminated 3 players in the time span of just like a second right there. And it's 3 players on opposite sides of the river. Fella absolutely popped off. That was a highlight clip right there.
Man. However, we're down to our remaining 3 teams. And of course, it is clearly looking like a Bravos chicken dinner. represented Spain. It's good to see a Spanish team on top. It's honestly been too long. It may only be 4 eliminations, but the circle, the focus, in the end, they're getting the job done to clean this game up. They're searching for the last player. Correct. Could he get a bit of a surprise elimination? He's yet to be spotted. He's going on the risky high ground spot, but sometimes that can be the unorthodox spot, right? Wrapping around and trying to get that, hey, you expect me to be in the buildings? Well, no. I'm on the high ground. He's able to enter into the edge of the circle, use use the rocks. But now, his biggest task is in front of him, Zute. 1v4. Could he pull off the miracle push?
Bravis is not going to have any idea because he quite literally went back to where Bravis just pushed down from. So Bravis at this point must be thinking, oh, he's in the blue. But, oh, maybe Bravis does have some sort of idea. And there's one.
There you go.
Just try, yep, confirm the point. I respect that. I mean, there was a chance in a world where he could 1v4, but most likely it was not going to happen. And he played it patient. And Glor and Bravis with a top 2 finish.
I don't want to be rude to both Glor and Bravis per se, but I do have to say that was one of the strongest games in which the result was, or the end result standings-wise, was a product of the circle shifts, right?
Okay, fair.
You know, again, it's nothing against them because you take it, right? That's the RNG factor of not only a Sanhok game, but any game. But for sure, the result of that was a big product of the circle shift. Because right down until the second last circle, it could have been down on the Southwest Island, right? And we would have seen most likely a different team winning. The fact that Bravis kept 4 players up meant that, hey, they played the calculated waiting game. They played the right positions, right? And that is a big positive for them. I know one player was eliminated at the end, but we don't really count it per se to what was down to the final two teams. And Glor, considering they lost 2 players early on, the counter props to the circle allowing them to get second, to stay huddled down as a duo and execute a second place. That does require a lot of mental resilience, and that second place, I would argue, is more deserved than Bravis's first.
Okay. That's okay. I didn't expect you to end it on a spicier note like that. But for both teams, it's always good to see a good result from teams that have been struggling. But I will agree with you. That was more due to the side of the circle rather than like team proactiveness or team synergy. But still, like you mentioned, that's the beauty of PUBG, right? PUBG Mobile. It is a game of RNG. And sometimes the RNG will just favor you enough that you'll get that nice, chicken without having to do all too much. But that's very rare at this point in competitive. Yeah. Now there's so many teams that know how to take advantage of the disadvantages they get, and they'll force their way in. They'll force their way into that chicken dinner, even if they don't get the zone. But this time around, Sanhok will favor those 2 teams, and they'll get some nice placement points to follow suit. Now, in general, though, that Sanhok game, I don't know how I feel about it. We saw some early game fights, and then we saw some chaos all throughout. But I feel like that Sanhok game was a bit on the slower side as far as what other Sanhok games we've seen.
It kind of felt like probably the most lackluster Sanhok game we've had so far in the PMECT. That's taking absolutely nothing away from the teams. It was just one of those games where, honestly, I could have casting it. I could have I could give or take in it, right? It's not one of those games where I'm like, oh, I'm so glad I casted it, right? From that standpoint. Sometimes that's going to happen, and you take the good with the bad when it comes to circle shifts, circle endings, and games as a whole. And credit to all teams that did participate, because it was pretty tough right until the end. Well, we're going to have another break. 1 more to go. Actually, no, 2 more to go. This is the second last one. My apologies. But there is 1 more game after this. Don't go away. Highlights on your screens when we go back, and then followed by the results and the final game. See you guys in a few. hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Hey, look, people of all ages. Let's get it right. We're back here in PMECT, the PUBG Mobile Europe Community Tournament. Myself and Zute, we're 3 games down. 1 more to go, my friend.
Yeah, 1 more to go, and the games have been pretty good. I mean, back-to-back games have been huge wins, at least for the first 2. Sanhok, we always say it's a completely different beast, and it was a rather of a quiet game ending, but that's just the nature of the game, Imperium.
It is kind of the nature of the game, and like you said before break, lackluster games, they will happen across the board. But when we're going to be taking a look at the match rankings, and the match rankings will definitely lead me to be kind of going in deeper about regards to the community points, because we're getting really at the tail end of the tournament. Right, today is Wednesday, as far as I know. We have Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 3 more days after this game. That means a total of 12 games across the different communities. And again, some days you're not going to have your community have both the teams playing, so it's going to make it even tougher. That means you're running out of time. Simple as that. So on that pace, let's take a look at the match rankings of that previous game, so we can really overlook at what teams are really starting to put themselves under pressure and which teams are finding it a little bit easier to perform.
So we see here Bravis coming in first overall with 20. So they have had 2 good games today. That's really good to see out of Bravis. Maybe, we're coming into the tail end of the tournament, but maybe Bravis could still kind of make a name for themselves with a few days left. Mega Power right there with 18 total points, but they went out, I wouldn't say early, but with only 8 placement points, they make up for it with 10 eliminations points. And Glor, which was the team that finished 2nd in the placements, come in 3rd overall since they only managed to get 3 elims. What this does show me, though, Imperium, which is kind of good for everybody in the lobby, is that it's not a very top-heavy finish, but there's a nice point spread going all the way down to 8th place. The 8th place team, 7-Up, and the 7th place team of Eastern Stars both only had 1 placement points, but they picked up 6 elims along the way and nabbed themselves a decent, okay finish of 7 points for their game.
And it was, to be fair, for the first time in quite a while, a very successful game for the Czech Republic / Slovakia region community, should I say. In that game alone, 22 points. And Glor, this is their second decent game of the day. So that's really positive, considering they dropped down in terms of the overall rankings. And like I said, one of the communities where it's low-key running out of time. We are going to be getting into the final game of the day very soon. Italy. This is a call to arms. La Familia, Red Moon. It's time to step up the pace. Whether or not it's 1 game today, the rest of the games of the tournament, I need you to pull out more. Because in today's games alone, only 25 points. When you look at Germany, 42 with 1 representative. Romania with 58. It's slipping back. I don't want to see that happen.
It might just be that slip up that they need, though. We saw Germany yesterday have a huge slip up, but they're turning it around today. Ideally, you don't want to have a slip up day at all, but it is what it is. Maybe the French region or the Italy region, I'm sorry, could bring it back tomorrow, or they might just bring it back on this last match for today. But yeah, La Familia and Red Moon, both teams looking really quiet just all throughout the day.
And it also, not only does it force you to slip further away from Italy and Germany, but it also opens the door for UK as a region to get into the top half, to get into the top 5. Because coming into today's games, it's a pretty big jump that UK need of about 140 points. But even in today's games alone, Real Tiger 9, the sole UK representatives, have gotten themselves 26 points. That's more than Italy. It's only 1 point more, but you know, it's there. So yeah, Italy, you can't let yourself slip further.
So we do have the first circle come up on your screen. It's pretty much almost I want to say exactly alike, but it's very similar to the first circle we had today on Erangel, which, you know, unfortunately we didn't get to spectate all the way through, but maybe, just maybe, we might see some similar rotations and fights, given the first circle is very similar.
Real Tiger 9 dropped to Pachinki, by the way. And I honestly think, considering the playing path, it was the only real safe, whether or not Mega Power dropped in Pachinki, their only real safe full drop Portugal, because there's no way they were really gonna properly access Milk Power. And yeah, they took the opportunity, and it ends up overall very much paying off, because Mega Power opted to go to Military Island and head towards Novo. We did see also Eastern Stars. They may have the name because of their drop on the eastern side of the map across all 3 maps. But as we've seen across the 2021 season, a big part of why they got to the PMGC West, they are able to adapt, and they adapt by dropping to the western side of the map on this playing path.
I like how Real Tiger 9 gets to claim Pachinki, and then how they kind of just resoundingly gave up Picado to Mega Power. So a little bit of like a mutual agreement type thing, almost like, okay, we'll give you Picado, you give us Pachinki, and let's call it a day, right? Because there was a point in time where 3 out of the 4 games, they would drop clash. 3 out of the 4 matches started off with a hot drop for both of these teams. And I think they finally kind of came to terms and realized, like, look, as much as, you know, drop clashes are good practice, so if we get contested in the future, we're more familiar with it, it's very limiting how we play the rest of the entirety of the game, which is arguably way more important, because that's where most of the points come in, right? How your team plays, the circle shifts, and everything when you're unhindered. And at the PMGC level, you see a lot of teams respect that, right? Teams don't waste time doing drop clashes. They figure it all out in the scrims beforehand, and they want to play their own match unhindered as far as the beginning of the game goes.
I apologize if you actually touched upon this already earlier on in this game, but it's a very similar phase 1 compared to what we initially saw in the first game of the day. And I'm curious if 7-Up will suffer the same fate, or if they'll maybe learn from their mistakes and recognize that Respect, they're not to be messed with. They technically move in towards those Headshot Hills area a little bit earlier with a stronger split outside of Roshawk. I'd like to see that adaptation coming through, because 7-Up have proved they can get good results, they can get good points. They just can't make the kind of mistakes they did in game 1.
Yeah, if a blunder occurs, that just completely limits what they can do for the rest of the game. And I like that you bring that up, because, you know, great minds think alike. So I did touch on it a little bit, but the fact that you bring it up, I'm just like...
Sorry repeated what you said. Yeah,
no,
I didn't mean
cool.
to.
I don't mind that, because what that tells me is just literally what I said. Great minds think alike. That is exactly the same thought I had. I was like, this is a very similar circle. We might see the similar engagements happen, but this is just the first phase, right? Going on into the next few circles, it's probably going to be drastically different of what we missed out on game number 1. Imperium, by the way, did contact one of the players, and he was correct. It ended around the ruins area. So I'll be damned if it ends around there again. Eastern Stars, Bazzi, getting a little bit caught out here. Taking some shots. Well, he's definitely given away his position. And now he's got to make a play with Clay right there. Clay with that grenade in hand ready, cooking. Bazzi goes down to half HP. Bazzi at least is preemptively boosted, so he has that going for him. And of course, Eastern Stars, all he needs to do is stall for time, as Atlas comes in on a glider to try and support, but Bazzi already gets knocked, and Thurston not able to stall long enough for his teammates to make a huge impact.
I actually appreciate what Bazzi did, even though to the casual eye it looks as if he was, you know, doing something silly of taking shots while he had a player from an opposing team below him. But what that did initially, despite him getting knocked and thirsted, was kind of just shake La Familia a little bit and kind of ruffle their feathers and maybe just throw a little bit of a distraction while the rest of the team tried to wrap around and get a position. And they've turned it around, right? 2 of the players knocked from La Familia. Eastern Stars being proactive in this western side of the map. And yeah, they could most likely come out on top. However, it's not going to help when the Warlord Kapahala gets knocked and possibly Terminat in this final game of the day.
Evil Boy did that knock with an M762 at distance. That's like a 150 plus meter shot with the M762. But Doran answers back with the UMP. I mean, we've seen one long range UMP shot already. There's another one. That UMP weapon, super deadly. And the deadliest weapon of all has to be the DP, and that is what Zenny has in hand. Is this a 1v1 situation? No, it is not. Athos will get revived and heal on up. So I think the Eastern Stars will get their full reset. Of course, La Familia did manage to thirst one, and the entirety of this fight is on La Familia's wrongdoing. They finished one player of Eastern Stars in the compound, and then for whatever reason, they're running over across the road in the wide open, thinking that nobody was going to help that player of Eastern Stars. Also, why go for the revive wide in the open? You didn't finish the fight. Eastern Stars get the reset. They're going to look for you.
Yeah.
We called them out. We call La Familia out.
Of course.
They're not doing much for Italy today. And that was, honestly, I would have to say, pretty disappointing to see how they played that.
Yeah, for sure. And it kind of sums up the Italy community's kind of day so far, right? You know, that was the bow on top of the, you know, the poop package that has been Italians' results in today's games. We call it out because we know they're capable of better. We know that they've shown better, and they can and will do better in the last 3 games, last 3 days of this tournament, should I say. But we move on up. Greek army looting up and towards the coastline of this mainland area outside the western bridge. They did drop in the military island and they shifted their way forward. Phase 2 pops up, and it's a really nice Phase 2 because even though it could still end around that ruins area, it's way less likely to. It's actually literally not going to involve the north of the river.
Rex versus Big here. Once again, in Rozhok, we've seen this fight happen once before, I believe. Big, this time, not getting the advantage really as they're coming down into a 3v2 situation. Mazzaro and Michi, the last 2 up. Rex still has 3. Unless if Michi Mazzaro gets that one.
Oh my god.
He gets the second one.
Jesus.
And at the same time, we didn't see it, but Miki got a Molotov finish on the third one of Rex.
Yes.
It was a 2v3, and then it was just like that. Big win the fight. Wow.
By the way, this fight didn't happen previously. It was actually 7-up against Big
7-up.
in one of the games where Big decided to drop in Rozhok because Rexpect wasn't actually playing in the group. But this is purely just a rotational fight that happened at the end of Phase 1 towards Phase 2. And I'm a little bit surprised because in the first game of the day, when it was a similar Phase 1, Rexpect were a lot more proactive on the Headshot Hills area. This game around, that's a similar Phase 1, why didn't they do the same? Right? I know they end up going out, but that was more of a mistake when they tried to be loot goblins in that moment, and Real Tiger 9 pounced on them and punished them for their sins in that regard. So yeah, a little bit weird decision making, inconsistent from Rexpect, and honestly, it's probably the biggest component on why they've really struggled over the past 3 to 4 days, if anything, a bit longer.
Yeah, the circle is very similar. Maybe not similar enough for them to feel like they want to do what they did, in game 1. But also, to counter that, in game 1, they had one fight that they won, but then they actually got taken out real early. So maybe they were coming into this game with the adjustment of, okay, we'll just play it slower and not rotate more central so early on. But either way, both options led to them going out pretty early. they'll just have to come back and try another day, of course, because we still have a couple more days left in this tournament. As we take a look at Mega Power on the southeast or southern side of the zone, controlling the shoreline and the barnyard buildings.
I really like this spread by Mega Power. It was previously held onto by YMCA, but it seems like Mega Power, the other Nordic representatives, have gotten there first. So great minds think alike from the Nordic community to give them both credit. And just like back in the day when the Nordic Vikings dominated the coastal lines of countries, invaded, pillaged through the likes of Ireland. Not that I'm bitter at all. We're seeing in this Erangel game, both teams holding on to the coastal line.
Next circle is about to shift on up here. Eastern Stars actually coming in from the western side of the map here, you see. And the circle is going to go down to the southwest, where there's that big open field that will come into play with the numerous shacks and hay bales. Yeah, very tricky part of the zone. But you're going to see teams try and prioritize the top hills south of Pachinki. You'll see the teams try and prioritize north of the bridge. There's a really strong hill there. And also the compound. And most likely Eastern Star is going to control that western hillside. And that's going to leave a few teams that's going to have to default to going into the fields and playing those shacks, which honestly isn't a terrible position. But it is it's definitely a tougher one to do much out of.
They're ripping each other apart. The Nordic communities. Mega Power going up against YMCA. Fellows knocked. But Logis with a nade, with a couple of bullets, able to at least overall push the advantage. Beautiful by King D. Chucks a nade before going for the revive, or at least his teammate going for the revive. Will massively slow down Mega Power. Now, there is that flank player in the form of Rex, but I would argue he's able to do absolutely nothing. There's actually two players there. My eyes, they've just got to cut their losses, see two players go down, and try to make their way into the edge of the circle.
Yeah, I think that 2-2 split should have been adjusted a little bit the second the first player went down, right? Take that 2-2 split, make it a 1-3, because you have one player knocked. You can't commit a player close range to sticking the revive without another player close by to put on the pressure. So a little bit of an adjustment mistake there. Hopefully they could take that as a lesson as the rest of the teams try and rotate in. Glor coming into a fight with the Eastern Stars here. Eastern Stars, of course, wanting to control this hillside. Like I predicted, this hillside is a very big, strong, sprawling position with a lot of info that could be had on the center of the zone.
Glor losing a player. Talked about how they've had a pretty good day representing Czech Republic / Slovakia community. Losing player early on in this game isn't going to help. Eastern Stars up to 5 eliminations. They finished off La Familia earlier on. We saw that fight go down. Can they do the same to Glor? We'll have to wait and see. Greek Army holding on to the Ferry Pier Hills, and absolutely priority area of this phase 3. They're going to look to gatekeep Real Tiger. 9 is Mega Power. They lose another player. The disrespect from Chasmak is strong, and this one leaves Rex on his own. Is going to be able to pull off a first aid, but in that time, the members of Chasmak are going to be surrounding Mega Power like sharks in water. Next circle pops up. And it is going to be Greek Army. Going to be pushing towards that compound that's massively inside the circle. It's very much field position, field play in this kind of phase. Seem to have lost Ute. I don't know what is up with his audio, but we'll try and get him back soon enough.
I'm here.
Oh, you're here? You're here?
Yeah.
I thought...
yeah,
I wasn't talking and then... You okay?
I did have some mic issues for a little bit.
Okay,
I was saying, Chasmak Gaming, I saw them going for a similar rotation as the 4 Romanian men, but I think the 4 Romanian men beat them to the punch. They both want that shack in the dead center of zone, and You see here, there's not much you can do from that shack, but it's good enough where you can keep your heads just down low enough that even with the Greek army lasering in on that position, no shots connecting, and it's center zone, right? They're playing for the late game. Eventually, teams will have to press into them. At least that's their hope when they get the next few circles. So 4 Romanian men making a fast rotation from the top of Pachinki Hill, which they have sight lines of that shack, right? They saw that shack, it was open. The second that circle shifted, that was the play for them, and they knew exactly what they were going to do. So very fast adjustment and rotation out of the 4 Romanian men's side.
Depending on how proactive Greek army are, I don't really like the fact that they gave up that hill to Real Tiger 9. I think that's a pretty big potential mistake when you look at the law of percentages, right? Yeah, okay. There's a stronger guarantee that the next circle is going to be in the favor of Greek army, but if they're focusing on 4 Romanian men, having the elevated position, there's absolutely nothing, you know, there's no guarantee that they're not going to get third party by Real Tiger 9. We'll have to wait and see what happens as Eastern Stars driving around. Kappahala, what are you doing? You're looking for an entry shack. I appreciate that on his own. An anchor point position has been played. He's going to have to be proactive on his shots, maybe carve it in for the rest of his team who are now moving in on separate vehicles.
I really like how even though Kappahala was lower HP, he peaks really quickly to fire some pressure shots. Now, YMCA King with a very nice aim right there on one, almost getting a second. That M4 is just straight lasering right now. And he's shooting through such a small angle right there through that shack window. Mega Power get taken out. They will be the 14th place team to get eliminated. So we still have 13 teams alive in such a chaotic zone.
What I really love with this kind of circle, and I think it's an evolution of the meta and the competitive scene as a whole. In the past, we would have seen 3 to 4 teams commit the whole squad to one shack. Whereas now, teams are becoming more confident and aware that that poses a lot of danger, so they're splitting it. Look at YMCA, for example. Look at Bravos, for example. Even look at Tuna. Well, okay, not so much Eastern Stars as the 3 players up, but my point is teams are learning and are getting better in dealing with these kind of situations.
Next circle comes up, so we do have the Greek army compound in play, which might try to get breached on by Real Tiger 9. There's a chance Real Tiger 9 might just play the wall of that western side. I've seen 2 teams kind of co-share those compounds that way quite heavily. But usually all it comes down to is just one team getting the initial knock, and they're kicking those new neighbors out. And the rest of the map, well, it's the open fields and the few shacks that are left, and every single shack from the looks of it is already taken.
Bravos losing 2 players, I think, on the rotation, or I forget if it was earlier on, but either way, they only have 2 players left. 4 Romanian men also in a pretty strong position in circle as they push in. However, Red Moon, Sarah, is able to steal a kill. Big Mazzaro, I believe the last player up for his side, does pick himself up a bit of a knock and a kill, but there's not much more he can do. Red Moon finishes him off. 5 eliminations still for the members of Big in the final game of the day. It was a much stronger day from Big and the German community, but they still have a long way to go if they're going to catch up with France.
Pyro with the Groza silence right there, not connecting the shots. As Glor gets pushed on by the Eastern Stars and 7UP. 7UP come out on top there. 7UP down to 2 players. Is Eastern Stars able to capitalize on this? Do they have a grenade? One good grenade, and that's 7UP completely taken out. But I don't think Eastern Stars have the util right now to be able to use.
In my opinion, they don't want to because they see a bigger threat in the form of, let's say, Red Moon to the north, right? You saw one of the players, I think it was Kappahala or Doran, firing up towards the members of Red Moon. I overall agree with that.
And just as I was talking about, does he have any util left? He does get a 1-for-2 grenade in that kill feed. Beautiful grenade.
Where the sound was coming from.
Yeah, beautiful grenade out of the Eastern Stars there. YMCA. We were thinking that they might try to breach this and take a head-on fight. But it looks like YMCA is just down to 1, and they're just going to try and stay alive and stay quiet for as long as possible. Maybe play a little bit of a spoiler if the zone slightly leaves compound. There's Trazen with the DP. The DP god himself. Trying to dodge and weave. Trying to get to the nearest hay bale, and he does manage to make it through, but that hay bale's still not yet in zone, so he's got to keep dodging and weaving and running. Chasmak pushing up into the zone, though, as that blue zone closes and zone shifts down to the south towards the compound of the Greek army.
Not really much you can do, right? Lewis Bravus finishes off Red Moon. It is really like such a disgusting part of the map to be in because there's absolutely zero security, right? You can be shooting in one direction, there's a team in another direction shooting at you. It's so volatile. Now, as the dust settles, we're down to our final 5 teams. Greek army, they have the compound, they have the circle, they have the possibility of a Greek chicken dinner. And outside of the circle shift, I'm really happy because I really feel with how they've evolved, they deserve a win.
Greek army still looking strong with 4 up. I want to see them get some more elims, though. They have 5, which is a decent amount. But given the fact that they have this circle, I want to see them end it with at least 10 to 12. You see them peeking long range. The sight lines are there, but it's so hard to hit a target from this distance and to confirm the thirst as well. It's more likely if they get a knock, the other team's going to steal the kill. As Lemon's Gate smoking themselves off. Maybe it's the smokes of rain also. But they're just trying to do what they can to stay alive in the zone.
Rana looking for an aid in Shaq as the smoke plays around. He gets caught out by Freezy. Well played by Freezy. If I was Greek army, by the way, I'd actually send one player out to the deep eastern side / northeast of that circle to get a little bit of information and to take a bit of a chance. I think it would be worth that sacrificial lamb play to overall a cleaner execution and, like you said, more eliminations. However, as it happens, they're up to 9. You said you want to see at least 10. Well, they only need 1 more elimination, followed by the chicken dinner to really please Zute. And you always want to please Zute.
I mean, pleasing me usually entails just playing absolutely insane, right? And I think not just me, I think you and all the viewers love to see some insane plays. And if you're able to make insane plays, I mean, that's a feels good for you as well, especially if you're recording. So make sure you do record. If you're a competitive player, record your footage, man. Those are memories to be had. For Romanian men, one of their players gets knocked down by Kappa Hala. Kappa Hala down to quite literally 1 HP there. Greek army get another one onto the side of the other team right there for Romanian men. Yeah, 4 Romanian men down to 2. Yeah. It's not looking good for them. It's a 4v2v2 and running over in the open. Not the best idea, but they should be able to get revived. Now, Greek army, are they going to keep playing this one slow and potentially be sandwiched between the 2 duos? Or are they going to be a little bit more proactive and try to eliminate one of these duos now rather than letting them get too entirely close?
The one thing I think they have as a big plus is that they know that it's 2 separate teams. They've been gathering the information over the last 10 to 12 minutes being in this compound for the time that they have, holding on to the elevation points. They're going to be playing on towards one side, but Stybone from a distance gets a knock on the door in. This is why I nearly recommended earlier on in the previous phase for them to send a player deep towards that eastern side. As it happens, they didn't, and they didn't need to. They're still controlling this circle. For Romanian men, the final 2 players up for their side. Not quite in the circle. Not quite in.
Yeah, we're in for a little bit of a stalemate here, I believe. Everybody's going to just hit prone after they're done taking their shots. And then they're just going to edge their way into this new zone. Kappa Hala not fully in the zone. The Eastern Stars have a little bit of ways to prone in. But 4 Romanian men forced to do the same. Whereas Greek army, they can stand tall and proud and fire off as many shots as they want because they have the number advantage so that if one player gets knocked, a setup can be made to successfully get that revive off as well.
Some might think that Greek Army are splitting focus a bit too much. I massively disagree because the angles that they have to support the other two players in the other direction. Still not guaranteed. It's a little bit of a three-way dance. The body advantage is towards Greek Army, but it could go horribly wrong. It's gone horribly wrong for 4 Romanian men, though, as they do find themselves eliminated. The battle for what was ultimately most likely second place has been won by Eastern Stars, and Kapahala going down, followed by Doran. It's a Greek Army chicken dinner.
That is, if I'm not mistaken, the first chicken dinner for the entirety of the Greece community.
Yes.
So we saw in games 1, 2, and 3, right? We saw Bravis step up. We saw Glor step up. We saw these teams do well when we don't usually see them in the top half of the leaderboard, like top 3 overall. And now for the very first time, we see a Greece chicken dinner, and no other more well-deserved team to finally break out and get that chicken than Greek Army. Sure, they got a bit of the zone luck on their side. I'm not gonna, hype them up too much, but we've seen a huge evolution and growth from this Greek Army team.
Exactly.
So I think it is well-deserved that they catch a little bit of a break, reward them for their efforts for when they don't get good zones. They still managed to put in some work recently. So get a little bit of RNG and close it out. That's the important thing. They closed it out without making too many haphazard mistakes.
Yeah, honestly, it was a very well executed game, circle or not, in their favor. They were proactive on those elevation points in the compound they had control of. My small fear that they committed to it too early was exacerbated because nobody really pushed behind them, right? And Real Tiger 9 also low-key got a little bit slowed down by YMCA, for example, right? And in the end, that's why I gave a little bit of extra oomph on that win from Greek Army, because in the overall perspective, as you pointed out, how much they've evolved, how much they've improved, they deserve this win. Greece deserved this win, right? The Greece community deserved this win, and I'm so happy to see. I'm also happy for you watching to take a look at the highlights. We're going to go for a quick break, our final break of the broadcast. We'll be back with the match rankings of the final game. Do not go away. Welcome back. Thanks for sticking with us during the break. As of course, we've had our day ending 4 more games in the PUBG Mobile Europe Community Tournament. And it ended with a really deserving chicken dinner coming out from Greek Army, Zute.
Greek Army, you mentioned it while we were off air for a second. This was the very first chicken and the last community to not yet receive a chicken. So everybody gets a little bit taste of the chicken. And Greek Army, of course, a team that's been vastly improving throughout the duration of this tournament.
I didn't know Oprah was involved in the PUBG Mobile Europe Community Tournament. You get a chicken, you get a chicken, everybody gets a chicken. Oh, man. But again, just really happy to see it. And, as we take a look at the match rankings in the next couple of seconds or so, we'll be able to also kind of have a bit of an overview and a bit of a peek in towards the overall standings of the communities and really kind of shine a bit of a light on which teams have been stepping up to the plate. So let's have a look at the match rankings for the final game of the day.
So, you love to see it. Oh, not just Greek Army, Lemninskate as well.
Oh, yeah!
Having a decent game. So there we go. Congrats to the Greece side. That is actually amazing to see. And of course, Romania ending it off strong. Eastern Stars and 4 Romanian men, just pretty much neck and neck as far as the points covered for that last game of the day. And Bravis, hey, Bravis in the top 5 finish. It looks like this Bravis name is going to be sticking around for a little bit. We still have a couple more days. I'm going to keep an eye out for Bravis now to see how consistent they are with this recent improvement for today.
I'm going to be straight up honest. Bravis are the best Spanish team in this tournament. They're now the number 1. Respect. I'm wearing their jersey, but sorry, you're not performing good enough. You're making fundamental mistakes. There's no real identity to your playstyle. And there's also no improvement, more importantly. You're going backwards, my friends. And it hurts me to say it as a fan of the org. But I gotta call it as it is. And at the end of the day, the results speak for itself. The mistake speaks for itself. With 3 more days to go, need to step up or step out. Portugal's Spanish community.
As well, since we're on the topic of calling out, a team, I gotta kind of mention the Italian side of things.
Yeah.
They had a flop day today, and if I'm not mistaken, in the past 2 days, they've also struggled on one of those as well. They did have a shine out day, recently, but it's just kind of fallen away, and they're one of the teams that are vying for like a top 2, top 3 position. So with so little days left, they really need to get their stuff together. 32
points across 4 games and 2 teams in today's 4 games. That's terrible. Genuinely, that's terrible. It's really bad, and it's the second day in a row as well, I might add, just to kind of point that out. But on the more positive end of the spectrum per se, Romania, 98 points in today's 4 games. And to give you even more of a perspective on that, France, Chasmak, the sole representatives, 27 points. So that was a 71-point difference that shaved off France's community lead. That's about half of what they had. I think it was about a 140-point lead coming into today's games, instantly taken away. So that was great to see from Romania, and it's going to mean that the last 3 days, hopefully if Germany starts to actually pull the finger out, we could see a really decent 3-horse race for the winning community of the PMECT.
So, you're saying it's not over yet. I threw in the towel and gave it over to, the French side, I think maybe like 2 days ago. I was like, man, the Chasmak.
Justifiably.
I mean, first off, mega power, the entirety of the tournament. Mega power, mega power, mega power. And then, are you kidding me? Chasmak as well now? And that's when I threw in the towel. I was like, this French region, uncontested. But with today's results, there's a small chance, in my opinion, still, that maybe the Romanian side, if they could keep this up for 3 days straight, and also if they could pressure down the French side for 3 days straight, they could do it. They could
Yeah.
still do it. But is that what their plan is going to be? We'll have to see in the upcoming days, Imperium.
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, Romania, they haven't knocked on the door of France's lead. They've knocked it down. They've gotten whatever, not the hammer, but the sledgehammer. There you go. And they've just knocked that door down. They've got the pan, and they've knocked the door down and said, hey, here's Johnny. Not here's Johnny, here's Romania. Here's the 8 players, the 10 players, the 2 community teams representing Romania. Say, do not count us out, France. Do not count us out, viewers. Do not count us out, casters. With that being said, the end of the day is upon us. Like I mentioned, 3 more days to go. 12 games left in the PUBG Mobile Europe Community Tournament. You're not going to want to miss it. Same time, same place, same wonderful casters. See you all tomorrow.